In today's video we're going to be covering the basics of oil painting, how to mix colours, and we're going to create a beautiful painting by the end of it. Okay guys, so I'm just going to run through the colours that we've got. First of all, I'm going to be using zinc white, which is a mixing white from the Artisan Water Mixable oil colour range. Then I'm going to have the cadmium orange hue, the cadmium yellow pale hue, and French ultramarine. You don't have to use the water mixable oil colours with this. This tutorial will also be fine to use with normal usual oils, and you can also use this tutorial for acrylics too, but it might be slightly different in some areas, so you may have to adjust your drying times if you're using acrylic. So in terms of brushes, I'm going to be using a 1/2 inch Floral Bright Bob Ross brush. And then we've got a Winton Flat size 2 in hog bristle, and we're going to be using that for details. And then I've got a palette knife just to add a little bit of texture at the end. Just use whatever you've got. It really doesn't matter what brushes you're using. I don't generally have the same brushes that I use. I just grab whatever I've got nearby. This is a flat brush. As you can see from the side, it's thin, and then you turn it and there's a nice flat edge. I quite like these brushes because they're good at covering a large amount of space, but also doing a detail as well. I also have a big tin of water here because we're using water mixable oils, and also just an old rag or tea towel. We're going to start with darks to lights because generally when you're using oil paint, that's what you do. So I'm going to take some ultramarine and add a little bit of orange. So this is going to darken the blue. So I'm just going to add a little bit of water to that just to make it mix easier, so you can see that on the palette. So adding orange, which is its opposite colour, takes out the saturation. So I'm going to start popping that onto the canvas. As you can see, I'm using quite a watered down consistency here. And that's going to help it glide easier onto the canvas. So using a lot of water or solvent if you're using regular oils will help it be a lot more viscous, and it does also help it dry a lot faster because it's a thinner layer. There's not as much oil in it, and this will also mean that we can go over the top of it without lifting too much on. So the first layers are really good to be a lot thinner with oil paint. When you go in so thick, and when I say thick, I would mean taking a big gunk of oil paint and slapping it on there. And when you do that, because it takes so long to dry, it's really difficult to then go in and add other colours because they tend to blend instead of sitting on top of it, which is wonderful when you want that to happen. But when you first start out with oil paints, that can be tricky to get used to. So what I'm just doing now is I'm bringing in some of the sky. I'm also going to bring in from the bottom too, because this is going to be the reflected water. So we want to sort of mimic what we're doing at the top there. And it's probably better if you do this flat, because obviously you can see the oil paint pooling a little bit because I've got my palette up high. Okay, so I might leave it there for that. I'm also going to take some of that mixture just again, quite a dark mixture there. And without as much water, I'm just going to start bringing in some of those clouds that you can see and those dark areas. And obviously remembering as well that everything has to be mirrored. So this is more of like a mapping out, but also we're putting in sort of those details right now so that we can see what we're going to be working on top of. Okay, so I feel quite happy with this so far. I'm just going to give my brush a good rinse off and survey what we've done and think about the next step. So rinse off your brush, and again, take off most of that water with your paper towel so you have a damp but not wet brush. So because we're going to be working dark from light, we're going to do that same concept. So we're going to be taking some of the orange, and this time instead of using the orange to dull the blue, we're going to take some blue to dull the orange. And can you see that's just making it a duller, darker colour here. And this, especially with oil paint, is a much better way of working with colour than adding black to things. You can also do this in acrylic, and it's a really good tip when working with colour and trying to get those different colours that you see in nature. Okay, so taking this, I'm going to start adding in some of those orange hues I can see. And because we're only working with a few colours here, it doesn't matter too much about mixing those colours on the painting itself, because we're using this in the mixture of paint anyway that we're using, so we can go over the top of these colours quite easily because we're already using them as a paint mixture, if that makes sense. And I like to sort of do this mapping out. You'll see this in a lot of my videos, that I generally do like to map things out before I go in with the thick paint. Because you can kind of stand back and it's not too late to change it if there's anything that you don't like. Say if at the minute I've got my horizon line around here, but if I wanted to move it, it's not too late to do that. If you do want to make any changes at this point, it's quite easy to add a bit of water to your canvas and then take a paper towel and absorb some of that paint away. So feel free to do that if you want to change things. Okay, so now I've got most of that mapped out and I'm quite happy with that. I'm going to take some of the orange paint, add a tiny little bit of blue just to dull that a little bit. And then I'm going to take some of the white, not too much because we don't want to add too much white at this point, just a little bit, just to make that an opaque colour. And it's lovely and creamy. And I'm going to use that to start building up those layers and add in that vibrancy. the minute I've left this white, and all the bits that I've left white are going to be quite light with the yellow. We don't want to add the yellow to anything that's too blue, because it will mix together and create a green. So that's why I've left this big band white here, so that we can go quite thickly with the white and yellow. Saying that, that's what's great about having a palette knife, is that you can put the paint on quite thick and not worry too much about blending. But that is the very last stage. So I'm just going to rinse out my brush again. I'd like to thank Skillshare for sponsoring today's video. Skillshare is an online learning platform with thousands of classes where you can explore your creativity and accomplish your passions. There are tons of video topics such as painting, journaling, photography, to starting your online business and even becoming an entrepreneur. My favourite video is Botanical Illustration, Paint a Colourful Garden with Watercolour and Gouache by Sarah Boccaccini Meadows. Her work is so inspiring, and for me, it really opened up how and where you can create art. For less than $10 a month with an annual subscription, Skillshare is a learning hub with new premium classes released regularly and no ads, so that you can stay focused on your project. The first 1,000 of my subscribers to click the link in the description box will get a free trial of premium membership, so that you can explore your creativity and enjoy a membership with meaning. Okay, so now we've got our base layer on. I'm going to go over the top and sort of solidify what it is that we've already done, because I'm happy with how this is turning out. So once again, taking it from the top again, I'm going to take some ultramarine. We're going to add some orange to that. So now, because we can start going onto the thicker layers, we don't have to add as much water. So we want to add enough water to make the paint viscous, so that it will move around on our brush and it will move around on the canvas. But we don't want it to be so much that it's dribbling down the palette and creating so much liquid that it's dribbling off the canvas. So you can see here it's thick enough to hold its shape, and that's the sort of viscosity that we're aiming for. So then I'm just going to start pasting that on, and you can see that that's coming in a lot darker colour. In fact, I've even got too much water on there because it is dribbling slightly. But that's okay, because you can just add some more oil paint to that. So I'm going to start pasting this on a lot thicker here. And then I'm going to do the same along the bottom for the reflection. Okay, brilliant. And then last but not least, I'm going to add that thicker into where we had it before, coming in here. Lovely, so I'm going to wash off my brush now. And once again, you can just take a step back and survey your next steps. So I want to do the same with the orange now, and the same steps. So taking some orange, I've already got a little bit of blue there from my palette, and popping that on also a little bit thicker. And this is when you can really start to blend it. And because we have thicker oil paint also on the canvas, the brush may also pick up some colour that's from there, and that's okay because that's what makes it blend. If you do find there's too much, you can either wipe that off on a paper towel, or you can take it back into the oil paint and sort of remix the colour again. Okay, lovely. So I think we're going to start going in with the highlights right now. Carrying on using this colour, taking the orange and then adding in a bit of white again. So this is very similar to what we did before, but this time we're not going to be adding too much water because we want that brightness from the colour. This is to add in some highlights. Okay, so I've just refreshed my colours. Okay, and I'm going to use this on some of the highlights. So I'm using this quite thick now. I don't want to press on too much because that will lift some of the paint off the canvas. So I'm taking this quite thick paint and I'm very lightly pasting that on to where I'd like those highlights to be. And this is almost the bit that brings it to life a little bit more because it adds that contrast of the light and dark. But it's really important not to skip those steps of adding those dark colours, because once you start adding white and lighter colours, it's very difficult to go back again. Okay, that's really nice. I'm really pleased with how this is turning out so far. Just going to add a few little highlights in the water down here. Not too much. Okay, lovely. So I'm going to wash out my brush. And again, just wipe off the excess water there. So now we're going to be doing the same with the blue. We're going to make that a dulled blue colour again and add white to this. This is going to create a really nice purple. It's almost like virgin on lilac. And again, taking this into the clouds to just create that atmosphere. You might have to keep remixing more colour as you run out, that's okay. And I'm kind of just going with it now. I keep looking at my reference photo just to get an idea, but generally this is where the fun is, and it's nice to sometimes break free from your reference. It's quite nice to break free from your reference photo and sort of go with what you can see in your mind. That's why reference photos are really great, because they can really help in the beginning stages of a painting when you're blocking it in and you're getting an idea for composition. But in the later stages where you know the direction that you want to take it in, it could be nice to break away and see where it goes on its own. And oil paints, as you can probably tell from this point, are just really beautiful at blending. Especially when you're using colours that are harmonious together, so either complementary colours or colours that are next to each other on the colour wheel. The blends are really beautiful. Also, a great tip is to squint when you look at your painting. Just squint, and it kind of simplifies what it is you're seeing, which can help you see anything that you really don't like the look of. Have you ever done it when you've been really focused, very close up at a painting, and you're happy with what you've done, and you come back the next day and see it and you hate it? Well, that's because we get so honed in on the details, and sometimes we forget to just stand back, take stock of what it is we've done and what it is we're working towards. So I've just added a little bit more white to my mixture there, because I feel like I was getting a little bit darker with it, and just not too much. We don't want too much white, but just adding a few highlights. So in a moment we're going to take the yellow. Now yellow is a great way of lightening up a painting, rather than adding white to everything. As long as it makes sense from a colour harmony point of view, we can add yellow to lighten. Right, so I'm quite happy with that now. You can see that I've still got some bare canvas here, and that's because that's where we're going to be adding the yellow paint quite thickly. And again, I didn't want it to mix with the blue. We're going to be taking some of this yellow here. And I've not got a lot of room on my palette here. I'll pop it here. It doesn't matter too much if it mixes with a little bit of the orange. So I'm going to take that pretty much straight from the tube here, and I'm going to start pasting that in where we want the sun to be. So this is just going to be the sunrise, and it's okay if that blends in for now because we can go back over it with the palette knife. But we're sort of setting the way for it to come in. So I'm going to use this quite thick now. And just be careful with any contact with blue here, because as I say, it can very easily mix and turn green. Okay, brilliant. So now I'm going to rinse off my brush. We've sort of paved the way for that now. So I'm going to take some more yellow and adding it quite thick straight from the tube, and very light on my brush so that we don't pick up the paint. Again, I'm going to lay those thick colours down. And now I'm just going to add a little bit of white to that. And this is where we can create the light coming in, which will lift the whole painting. Okay, I think I need some more yellow. Okay, again, some white and yellow together. I'm using very soft sideward strokes, which when you come out of the brush stroke, it will just help blend it through. And now for our reflection. So because this part is a reflection, I can bring this a little bit further down into the painting. Again, I don't want too much, just little hints. And we can even sort of go sideways just to take away that horizontal factor, which will give more the idea that this is water as well. And when you're adding reflections, you want most of them to be in the bulk of where the item is you're reflecting. So I don't want to put down a reflection in this corner, for example. They need to sort of stay in the area where the item is that they're reflecting. Okay, so I'm going to rinse off my brush. We're getting really close now. Should be getting excited because it's pretty much nearly there. What I want to do is take some of the orange. So up to this point, we've pretty much used orange mixed with blue, which has taken down that intensity. Now I want to add that intensity back in again, using it straight from the tube, just in a few areas, not too much. But I want to take it in the center here. Which will really draw your eye in and bring in your eye. Okay, and then rinse that off. Finally, I'm going to add in our sunshine. In fact, I'm going to pop that brush down now, and I'm going to go in with my detail brush. This is a hog bristle, which is a very stiff brush, which helps to maintain the paint on top of the subsequent layers. It sort of is a lot better at not bringing off paint, and it doesn't blend very well, but that's okay because we don't want to blend the sun particularly, we just want to add it in. So I'm going to decide where the sun's going to go. I think I want it about here. So I'm going to take that mixture, which is yellow and white, and I'm going to add that sun in. And because it's reflecting here too, I also want to add in a lot of reflections here too. Something that is offending me a little bit, so it might be offending you as well, is this highlight over here. So I'm just going to take that out because I feel like there shouldn't be like a highlight of yellow that far across. So to blend it out, I'm just going to take a clean brush and just wipe that away. And because that's taken off some of the paint, I'm going to add some more back in. I'm probably going to take the blue with a bit of orange. And just blend that through. I'm also just going to take a orange with a bit of blue mixture, and just tidy up this little line here. Because I actually want to take the palette knife now and add in some more details with the palette knife. So we're almost there. I'm really happy with how it's turned out so far. You can leave it here if you want to, that's absolutely fine. I'm just going to add in a few more little bits. So I'm going to take this yellow mixture and take that into that horizon line a little bit more. I just want to sharpen this horizon line up. So with the palette knife, I'm actually going to use a paper towel just to wipe off any paint that we have finished using. Then I'm going to take some orange and I'm going to pop it on this side of the palette knife, like this, so that I can drag it across. And I'm just going to pull that across the painting. I'm also going to add in just a few little highlights of that orange too. And then I'm going to wipe that off. Just going to add in a little bit more of that yellow highlight mixture in by the sun as well, because I feel like I've lost that slightly. So I've officially lost my sun, which is never a good feeling, but I wanted to get this blend, so that's okay. We can pop it back in. I'm really happy with this, I think, so far. So I think what I'm going to do is pop in the sun again. And then I think we're pretty much done. Obviously, we will all be at kind of different stages, and that's great and that's fine. In fact, I actually think it's really cool that we will all have slightly different paintings. Also what I'm going to do, which is a nice little tip, is take some white and just add a little blob directly in the centre. That's maybe a little bit too much actually, but just a little tiny bit of white in the centre of the sun, which will really just hone in our eyes to the sun. And the last step, what I'm going to do, or hopefully the last step, is I'm actually going to take the camera out on my phone and just take a photo of it on my phone. This will really help us to objectify it and only look at the details, and it can just help you see it from a different perspective. So looking at this, I'm not a massive fan of these little yellow highlights down here, and I notice there's a lot of orange in the sky and not a lot of orange down here. So I'm going to change that. I'm not going to take those yellow highlights out, I'm just going to add in orange over the top of them. So taking some orange, I'm also going to lighten up this area here just a little bit. So I'm going to take some orange, add some white and a bit of yellow, and just lighten up that area. And the last thing I'm going to do, which is more a personal preference, is I feel like this bit of reflective line here is quite a thick line. I just want to make it a little bit more dainty. So I'm going to take some of the same colour and just take that line out a little bit further just to soften it a little bit. If there are any areas that you want to blend, take your wide soft brush and again just take off most of the water, and then you can use that to just blend. You might want to wipe it in between each time you blend. I'm going to take some of this orange into the sky a little bit more as well. Okay. Okay, I think that is pretty much done now. For me anyway. I know that as I say, we'll all have slightly different paintings at this point. But I think that is it for me. So I absolutely loved painting with you today. Thank you so much for staying right till the end. Let me know in the comments if you guys joined in with the painting or you just sat and enjoyed the painting coming together. Let me know in the comments what you guys would like to paint next, and if you do post it on Instagram, don't forget to hashtag me in. Thanks so much for watching, and feel free to check out all my other painting videos, and see you soon. Bye guys!